2023 had its share of unforgettable blockbusters and cinematic masterpieces, but it also had some major disappointments. Today, we're counting down the worst movies of 2023. These films may have had high hopes, but for one reason or another, they fell flat. Stick around to see which movie ranks as the absolute worst. Starting off at number 10, we have The Little Mermaid, Disney's live-action remake that didn't quite capture the magic of the original. Directed by Rob Marshall, The Little Mermaid stars Halle Bailey as Ariel, with Jonah Hauer-King as Prince Eric and Melissa McCarthy as Ursula. The film was meant to breathe new life into the beloved animated classic, but unfortunately it fell short in key areas. While Bailey's performance as Ariel was widely praised, the film struggled with its visual effects, especially during underwater sequences, which felt stiff and lifeless. The CGI-heavy approach lacked the whimsical charm of the original, and even the reimagined musical numbers, though beautifully sung, didn't quite evoke the same sense of wonder. The movie relied too heavily on its nostalgia factor, without offering a fresh take that could captivate newer audiences. It may not be a complete disaster, but The Little Mermaid left many viewers wishing for more of the enchantment that made the animated version a classic. Which Disney remake do you think did it better? At number 9 is 65, a sci-fi thriller starring Adam Driver that had an intriguing premise but ultimately failed to deliver. Directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, 65 follows Mills, a pilot who crash lands on Earth 65 million years ago, only to discover that he must survive against prehistoric creatures while protecting a young passenger, played by Ariana Greenblatt. The concept of humans fighting dinosaurs in a high-stakes survival scenario should have been an adrenaline-pumping thrill ride. However, the film's pacing felt sluggish, and the character development was minimal, leaving little emotional investment. Despite Adam Driver's best efforts in the lead role, the movie suffered from a lack of depth and excitement, with many of the action sequences feeling repetitive and uninspired. Even with decent visual effects, 65 was a missed opportunity to create a gripping, action-packed sci-fi adventure. What would you have changed to make 65 more exciting? Number 8 on the list is Shazam! Fury of the Gods, the sequel that couldn't recapture the fun and charm of the original. Directed by David F. Sandberg, Shazam! Fury of the Gods brings back Zachary Levi as the superhero version of Billy Batson, with Asher Angel reprising his role as the teen Billy. This time, the film introduces Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu as the Daughters of Atlas, the villains threatening to destroy the world. While the first Shazam movie was praised for its lighthearted tone and focus on family, the sequel feels scattered and disjointed. The humor, which was a highlight in the original, often comes across as forced, and the villains, despite the star power of Mirren and Liu, don't add much weight to the story. The plot meanders, losing the heart and focus that made the first film so enjoyable. In the end, Shazam! Fury of the Gods didn't bring anything new to the table, leaving fans disappointed with a sequel that felt like a step down. Did Shazam! Fury of the Gods feel like a step down to you? At number 7, we have The Flash, a movie that had high expectations but stumbled in key areas. Directed by Andy Muschietti, The Flash stars Ezra Miller as Barry Allen, the Scarlet Speedster. The story follows Barry as he attempts to travel back in time to save his mother, but his actions inadvertently create a multiverse crisis. Michael Keaton returns as Batman, and Sasha Calle is introduced as Supergirl. Despite the hype surrounding Keaton's return and the promise of a multiverse adventure, The Flash was let down by a convoluted plot and poor visual effects. The CGI, particularly in the film's action sequences, was heavily criticized for looking unfinished, and the multiverse elements felt overwhelming rather than exciting. Although there were moments of fun, the film struggled to balance its emotional core with the grand spectacle it aimed for. In the end, The Flash didn't live up to its potential, leaving audiences wishing for a more cohesive and polished superhero film. Was the return of Michael Keaton enough to save The Flash for you? At number 6 is The Exorcist Believer, a horror film that tried to revive the legacy of one of the most iconic horror franchises but failed to leave a lasting impression. Directed by David Gordon Green, The Exorcist Believer is a direct sequel to the original 1973 classic. It stars Leslie Odom Jr. as a father whose daughter becomes possessed, forcing him to confront terrifying supernatural forces. Ellen Burstyn returns in her iconic role from the original film. While the idea of continuing the Exorcist legacy had horror fans intrigued, the movie ultimately fell flat. It relied too heavily on jump scares and didn't capture the deep psychological horror that made the original so effective. The pacing felt slow, and the story didn't have enough new ideas to justify bringing the franchise back. Even Ellen Burstyn's return felt underutilized, leaving the film feeling like a missed opportunity to honor its classic predecessor. The Exorcist Believer ended up as another forgettable entry in a long line of horror reboots. What's your favorite horror reboot? At number 5, we have Ghosted, a romantic action comedy that had a star-studded cast but couldn't deliver on its premise. Directed by Dexter Fletcher, Ghosted stars Chris Evans as Cole, a regular guy who falls for Sadie, played by Ana de Armas, only to discover she's a secret agent. The film mixes romantic comedy with spy action, following the pair as they're thrust into a globe-trotting adventure. Despite the chemistry between Evans and de Armas, the film's tone felt uneven, bouncing between romance and action without fully committing to either. The plot was predictable, and many of the action sequences lacked the excitement and creativity that the genre demands. With such a talented cast, Ghosted should have been a fun, breezy watch, but instead, it felt like a missed opportunity. What's your favorite romantic action comedy? Number 4 on the list is The Mother, an action thriller starring Jennifer Lopez that had potential, but ultimately failed to hit the mark. Directed by Nikki Caro, The Mother follows Lopez as a former assassin who comes out of hiding to protect her estranged daughter from dangerous enemies. The film attempts to blend emotional stakes with high-octane action, but it doesn't quite succeed in either. While Lopez delivers a solid performance as the tough, determined lead, the film's generic plot and lackluster action sequences let it down. The emotional connection between mother and daughter feels underdeveloped, and the pacing drags in parts, making it hard for the film to maintain tension. In the end, The Mother felt like a standard action film that didn't do enough to stand out in a crowded genre. Did The Mother live up to your expectations? At number 3 is Hypnotic, a mystery thriller that was meant to be a mind-bending ride, but left audiences confused and underwhelmed. Directed by Robert Rodriguez, Hypnotic stars Ben Affleck as a detective who uncovers a mind control conspiracy while investigating his daughter's disappearance. The film weaves together elements of science fiction, mystery, and psychological thriller, but its overly complicated plot works against it. While the premise is intriguing, the execution feels rushed, with twists that don't land and characters that never fully develop. Even Ben Affleck's performance couldn't save the movie from feeling muddled and disjointed. What should have been a thrilling, cerebral experience ended up as a confusing and underwhelming watch. What's your favorite mind-bending thriller? At number 2, we have Plane, an action movie that sounds fun on paper but fails to take off. Directed by Jean-François Richet, Plane stars Gerard Butler as Brody Torrance, a pilot who must team up with a fugitive to save passengers after his plane crashes on a war-torn island. The film tries to mix survival thriller with action, but the result is a forgettable formulaic movie that doesn't bring anything new to the genre. Butler does his best to carry the film, but the plot is riddled with cliches, and the action sequences feel generic. There's very little tension, and the film doesn't manage to build up the stakes enough to keep audiences engaged. In the end, Plane feels like just another action movie with nothing special to set it apart. What's your favorite Gerard Butler action movie? And finally, at number 1, the worst movie of 2023 is House Party, a reboot of the 1990 comedy classic that completely missed the mark. Directed by Calmatic, House Party follows 2 friends who decide to throw a massive party at LeBron James's mansion while he's out of town. What could have been a fun, chaotic comedy instead falls flat with unfunny jokes, bland characters, and a plot that goes nowhere. The film lacks the charm and wit that made the original a cult classic, and the attempts to modernize the story feel forced. Despite a few celebrity cameos, House Party never manages to find its footing, leaving audiences wondering why this reboot was necessary in the first place. House Party is a reminder that not all reboots are a good idea. What's your least favorite reboot? And that wraps up our list of the worst movies of 2023. Did any of these films disappoint you? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for more rankings and reviews. Thanks for watching.